All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Christine. I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen. Oops. Okay, everybody can see my screen. Shiva, can you see my screen? Okay, perfect. All right, so hello, everyone. We're so glad to have you here with us today. My name is Christine Plitt, and I am the VP of Operations and Educational Services here at the Data Incubator. Today, we have a very special topic to cover. We're going to be talking about how to successfully navigate a career shift into data science as a woman in a male-dominated STEM field. So we've invited our TDI alumni, Shiva Jabarnia, to join us, who is now a data science professional, and she will be sharing her personal experience and advice to other women interested in the field. She's been in your shoes where you're standing today, and we think that you'll find a lot of value in what Shiva has to share. We actually were able to meet prior to today, and she shared a lot of great insights that really resonated with me. Okay, so before I hand it over to Shiva to introduce herself, I did want to quickly touch on what we'll be covering today. So first, I'll give a brief overview of who we are and what we offer here at TDI. And then we'll discuss resume best practices, interviewing, and the most important thing, the importance of confidence. So Shiva will be sharing her insights and experience with us along the way, and we'll allow plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our TDI alumni, Shiva Jabarnia. So Shiva, would you like to introduce yourself to the group and give an overview of your background and where you're currently working?
Sure. Thanks for the time, Christine. So, hey everyone, happy to be here today. My name is Shiva Jabarnia. I now am a data scientist with BetterView, which works on progressive products, a platform that analyzes and gives insight on buildings, on properties, and they have open positions. So just opening a small parenthesis there, that do check out the career website of BetterView. I have a background in architecture and urban design, but 5 to a little bit more years of experience. And I came to TDI spring of 2021. And I'm very happy to be here today.
All right, we're happy to have you here. Okay, so like I mentioned, I'm going to give a brief overview of who we are here at TDI. So at the Data Incubator, we have a variety of part-time and full-time data science, data engineering, and data analytics boot camps for STEM postgraduates. You might be familiar with a handful of data boot camps out there. There's a lot of them. But what really makes TDI different from the rest is that our programs are completely immersive and hands-on. So we take the theory out of it and we focus on real world skills using live code and actual data sets. So in addition to that, we also have an expert career search team that assists with our resume services, interview prep, to really help our graduates land a job as a data professional once they leave our program. So if you're interested in learning more, you can check us out on our website or contact us via email at admissions@thedataincubator.com. At the end, we'll be providing you some information about our winter cohort. The application is still open for that. Okay, and so here is an overview of the program offerings that we'll have in our upcoming winter session. So we have our full-time data science fellowship, our part-time data science fellowship, and just to note, the full-time program is 8 weeks long, full-time. The data science program that is part-time is in the evenings, and it spans 20 weeks, where students are meeting with our instructors twice per week for class time and office hours. And then we also have our part-time data analyst program, again, in the evenings, spanning 20 weeks. And then we have our brand new full-time data engineering fellowship that we are very excited about. We have a lot of hiring partners that are poking us saying, hey, when are you going to have your data science students so that we can hire them? So feeling very excited about that. One thing that we're very proud of here at TDI is that our program outcomes. So we keep in very close touch with our alumni, and we know that 82% of our graduates are working outside of academia and in industry within 6 months of completing our program. So at the end of our program, we know that our graduates can go out and they'll have a certification as certified data scientist, analyst, or engineer, and that they can actually back up their skills when they're doing the job. So we hear from our alumni often that they would have not been prepared for their role had they not completed our program. And our students are working across a variety of industries all over the US, and we're constantly sending new hiring partners to make sure our job pipeline stays full. We get asked about our list of hiring partners all the time, several of which are listed here. This is not comprehensive. We have over 300 hiring partners and counting in our network, and not all of our hiring partners are active at the same time. What we typically see is about 50 active hiring partners for each cohort. And the winter cohort is exciting not only because we have our new data engineering cohort, but also companies at the beginning of the year are gearing up with new budgets for hiring. One very positive thing that's come out of the pandemic that we've seen is that many more companies are open to remote, which has really opened up a lot of opportunities for our graduates. So if you're interested, our admissions team, you can email them and they can send you an expanded list of our hiring partners. Okay, so now that you know who we are and what we do, we'll get to it. The first and foundational step to starting a data science career is building out your data science toolbox. One of the important things to note about the field of data science is that it's ever changing. And so this means that you need to stay on top of the latest trends and developments in the field. So you want to make time to connect with other people, grow your network, and participating in this talk today is a great example of that. You can connect with the other attendees and maybe ask them what professional groups they associate with. Also, if you can, taking classes helps to keep your skills sharp. So there's a wide range of classes available. We have our immersive program like here at TDI, or there's tons of shorter classes that focus on microlearning. So, and when you aren't taking classes, you can also take advantage of free content. There's webinars, newsletter, podcasts. These are all great ways to, hone your skills and your network. And once you've kind of, acquired some new skills, you can put them to the test and go on sites like HackerRank and Kaggle to showcase some of your newfound skills so that they can help get you hired. And then lastly, we always recommend that you look for conferences that can really help pack a 1-2 punch. So they allow you to master new skills and expand your network at the same time. And so this is a great way to make use of your time. Shiva, what has been your approach to building out your data science skill set and your professional network?
To start with the first one that you said, before coming to TDI, I took a couple of online classes and was doing a couple of projects on my own for the company that I was working for at the time, building my experience with hands-on projects as I was going by. But what I thought when I came to TDI was I needed a way to put everything, organize everything so that I could talk about what I knew when I'm sitting in an interview and be more confident in my skill sets. So that's how I went about that step. And from there, you asked about building my network. I have really tried to be active in, making that network viable. Not only thinking about how I want to reach out to, but also thinking about how to answer people who reach out to me. Thinking about how a chain must somehow form. Someone helps me, I have to help someone else. So that network can grow in both ways. And sometimes you get help from places that you didn't see help coming. I like to call it like where you find allies, and the bigger your ally group is, the more powerful you are. It's not only people who look like you or who are in the same boat with you, but also people who are willing to push you in the right direction or show you the way, no matter where they're standing in their own professional life. So I don't know, does that answer the question?
That is great. And I love that you're paying it forward. Someone helped me, so who can I help? I mean, that is just awesome. So yes, that's a perfect answer. Thank you. All right. So, if you take all the tips and advice that Shiva shared about, sharpening your skills in your network, there's a few more steps you can take to set yourself up for success during your transition. So one of the most important keys to success is having a resume that really stands out. So a great first step in creating a standout resume is making sure it's very well organized. We have a lot of feedback from our hiring partners that you want to start out with your technical experience first, and you don't have to go into extreme detail. You want to make sure it's very clear and concise. You also want to make sure that you highlight your experience effectively. So this is easier sometimes said than done when you're just starting out and the bulk of your experience is in academia. If this is the case for you, some of your experience is just not going to translate to people outside of academia, unless you make sure it's extremely clear and easy to understand. And an important thing to remember is that often the first person reviewing your resume, it's going to be non-technical. So you want to make sure that the resume conveys your expertise and skills at a first glance to any desk that it comes across. And so with that, we can talk about CVs. So unlike a resume, that lists your work experience, your overview of your skills and education, a CV is far more comprehensive. And it's way too detailed for any type of job outside of a university looking for teaching staff. I suggest doing some research and potentially investing in hiring a high quality resume writing service. So you just want to make sure that they have experience working on technical resumes. And then after your technical experience, you're going to want to list your work experience. If you have any, you can weave in examples of how you applied your technical skills throughout your work experience where it makes sense. And while you definitely want to include your academic experience, you want to make sure that you stick to the most important and relevant components. So coursework, teaching experience, and your dissertation title. You want to shy away from very specific information like names of your academic advisor or your GPA. And then take the time to customize your resume for each job so that you can set yourself apart and really stand out. And so Shiva, when we spoke, you mentioned that you got a lot of value out of the resume rewriting portion of our program. Can you talk a bit about your experience and what you found helpful?
Yes, definitely. I think this is really important. Before talking about my own, I heard something very interesting a couple of days ago from a friend about how you want your resume to be like enough the other people who apply for that same job, that it goes into the pile of resumes that they are looking at, but also different enough that it comes to the top. If you're too different, if you look like you are from Mars, it's going to be difficult to put you in that same category. The hiring managers are not going to follow up, follow the leads on, well, can she or he do the job or not? You want to be like enough, but also different enough. It's, I think, a very subtle balance that you have to keep in mind when you're writing your resume. What I needed help with in this process was, well, I had a lot of experience that was not relevant really to the world that I wanted to enter. And I couldn't make myself leave some of that behind. I had only done the data science jobs with my previous job in the last couple of years, but I had so much experience in the urban design sense of things, in the world of architecture and construction. And it was very valuable to me. It was a little bit difficult to leave them off my resume. But getting some professional help, well, first of all, for an immigrant, my first language is not English. It helped make it the nuances in the language right, the right words to use, the right language to use on all those key points that I needed. And it also helped me see, okay, so maybe I really don't want to include this thing. Maybe it's okay if I don't talk about that really awesome thing that I did, a couple of years ago. And it actually helped. It came a long way in my resume, but I have to say I was surprised in the end by what I could put the emphasis on and how I could present myself versus what I was doing in the beginning, and how it was the same person. I was not exaggerating on the resume. There was putting the emphasis on different things when I was looking at the different versions. So yeah, different enough, but also similar enough. I guess that's the key.
Yeah, and I think that you make a really good point that there are certain things that you need to emphasize, and maybe to you it's like, well, this other thing I did was very important, but you want it to stand out to the hiring partner. So I think that is really good advice, and sometimes difficult when you've gone through and done these amazingly difficult projects, but it's worth it in the end. Okay, and so kind of in the same vein, After you have a successful resume rewrite, you want to make sure that you're conveying to the hiring manager that not only do you have the skills necessary to do the job, but you know how to apply them. So not everyone that can write perfect code knows what to do with it and why it matters to a business. And so more often than not, you've already worked on projects in your academic career that are relevant to solving business problems. However, that what we see most frequently is many of these projects are lacking context. And so you want to make it easy for the hiring manager to connect the dots. So as women, we are notorious for underplaying our accomplishments. So let's say you received a prestigious scholarship. You want to make sure that you expand on that. So just like in the example on the side of the screen, if you're worrying that you're sounding too boastful, just reframe it in your mind and see it as helping them to see that you're the best person for the job, and that by doing so, you're actually making their job and the decision process easier. If you're really stumped and unable to see how your experience working on a project could apply in a business setting, you can tap into someone in your new professional network that you've been working on. It should be really easy for someone, a business person or someone in the field, to spot the connections. So Shiva, can you talk about your experience with communicating your skill set to hiring managers, making sure that they understood the context behind some of the projects that you worked on and what you had on your resume?
Yes. Going back to what we talked about on the previous slide, one side of it was to drop the things that were not related, but also when I talked about reframing, when we were working with the professional resume writers at TDI, they had this very simple question and answer of, what did you do? How did that help whatever you were doing? What areas were the improvement happening on? So it made you kind of look at the same thing that you had done in a different perspective, because now you had to put it in this like a 3-column thing that I did this, and this was the result, and these were the numbers out of this. Sometimes whatever we do doesn't have a numerical outcome. I cannot measure how I improved something because maybe my work is not in that category that can be measured. But thinking about it in that way really helped me understand, okay, maybe I have to think about the metrics that change, or frame it in a way that makes sense to someone who is looking for that. It's not about that number, but it's about how I say that same sentence. So thinking about that, as I said again, it helped me shift the emphasis on each of those projects, all those things that I had done, from something that I thought was important to something that someone else looking at my resume would find meaningful. And that was really helpful.
Yeah, and I love the, kind of the framework that you stated for answering a question. I think that's important. If you can answer every question and say what you did, why it mattered, what difference it made, essentially, then you're going to be able to have a really great interview. And if you can keep it concise with that, then your answers will be really crisp, and it'll really get the point across as far as what you can bring to the table to the hiring manager. So you just basically came up with a framework for interviewing today. So thank you.
Yeah, and I guess thinking about it like that, it also gives you some more things to talk about that same project when it comes up in an interview, when someone asks you, well, can you tell us more about this thing that shows up in your resume? Just having thought about that from different points gives you more context, content, things to share about that.
Yeah, definitely. That's very helpful advice. Okay, so we're going to talk about confidence. But before I do, I want to share a quote from one of our TDI data science instructors who is female. And I really like this quote. I thought it was very meaningful and helpful. So she said, "Believe in yourself and work on your confidence. Women are so often taught to make themselves smaller. And as a data scientist, you're likely to be surrounded by men, mostly for now. And so don't be intimidated. You're much more capable than you think you are. And, with this, I've seen women in our program that are so accomplished, that are so well educated, and, they still are doubting themselves when they're in the program and they're interviewing for jobs. And, I think that if you kind of look at yourself from the outside and how someone else would view you, you should feel very confident about everything that you've done, especially when you're going out into the workforce after, completing years and years of schooling, and something that I hope that will change over time for women, just feeling more confident. So, when a company hires you, they want to be confident in their decision to offer you the job. You don't have to meet every single qualification in a job description. That's actually a wish list, and typically that person doesn't exist at all. So, you see these unicorn job descriptions, and most of the time, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So they're not going to find someone like that. So in fact, it's actually proven that men are much more likely to apply for a job that they don't meet all the qualifications that women are. So the reason is that men feel confident that they can figure out and learn what needs to be done. So, I don't know that, but I can make that happen, or I'll learn it later. And what we know about that is that every woman is capable of doing this as well. And so it should be no different for women when they're looking at a job description and saying, okay, I think I can learn that and fill in the gaps. So please don't worry about being 100% qualified for every job you apply for. Your confidence can make up for any gaps in your resume. So if you're confident that you can rise to the occasion and learn what you need to learn, that is enough a lot of the time. So you've worked hard, you deserve the job, you're confident, and then you can learn and master all the aspects of your role. So you need to start acting like it. And then continuing on the subject of confidence, we would like to reference an article that we read from HBR on the 6 things successful women in STEM have in common. And it's no surprise it's confidence. So however, there's a big gender gap in confidence that exists in the world today, and it's in our faces constantly. Actually, so much so that we actually become desensitized to it. There is recent research that we reviewed that shows that there's indications in recruiting messages for women in STEM that reinforce the idea that men are better in STEM fields. And you as a STEM female have the opportunity to help propel the change that needs to happen going forward. So if you're wondering where to start, I recommend that you check out the book, The Confidence Code. In this book, the author clearly outlines the crucial role that confidence plays in the ability for women to succeed. And studies have proven that women have trouble advocating for themselves professionally. This includes speaking to their accomplishments, negotiating a job offer, or asking for a raise. So this book can help provide a research-backed roadmap to help you develop and increase your confidence. And so, Shiva, one of the things that with you that really stood out is that you exuded so much confidence when we met. I knew that this lady knows her stuff, and that, she's making waves in the world of data science. And so, that definitely came across to me. And you talked about this a little bit earlier, but you mentioned, the allies in the workplace that you identified, and, that you interviewed for jobs, and there were certain jobs where you felt like you could establish greater ties with allies there, and that it actually helped increase your confidence going into the job. And then I also know that you received more than one job offer in our program, and you did negotiate. And so I would love it if you could speak a little bit about both, but just really diving into how you built up this confidence through the allies, or whatever other means there have been.
Definitely. I guess when we talked initially about this, I tell you that I consider myself lucky when it comes to thinking about people that I have worked with and that I came across in my professional work, which doesn't mean that I think I did any less. I didn't do any less of a hard work than my peers. But being in groups that I saw support from and having the allies that I needed made the hard work not that difficult. Like, it didn't feel like too much because I knew I had the support group that can catch me when I need that. So I guess part of the confidence thing comes from that support network. It comes from the allies that we built. It comes from the way I carry myself, I guess, in the room, because yes, I do need that job, but I also don't need it that much because if I don't get it, there is another place that will hire me. And that shows when you talk to someone. It doesn't mean that I'm snobby. I hope not. But it just means that, yes, but when we are sitting at this table, we are kind of equal. When I'm talking to the hiring manager or to someone who's hiring me, not in the sense that we are the same, in the sense that I need them and they need me. So let's take it from there. It's not that, oh, I'm the one who is the needy one. Something that also resonates with me when we talk about confidence is actually about like our cohort at TDI. I'm guessing from the group that is attending this meeting now and people who attended our cohort, most of them had PhDs from very high-ranking schools. PhDs in physics, PhDs in chemistry, people who knew so many things that I had no idea about. My background, again, is in architecture and in urban design, which is very different from, and I don't have a PhD, which again is very different from someone who comes in with a PhD in physics, who has done this for at least 5 years. They have worked with complicated data that I have not touched yet. But going back to the ally, like that also was a question for me of, can I like take the same thing home when we sit at the same class? Am I gonna be the last one in my group asking all the questions and not knowing anything? But we go back to the part that we talked about, making allies, finding them in the room. In the end of the day, from our class at least, it was very obvious that there was a support network. There was a group that worked together. There were so many things that my peers didn't know. There were so many things that I didn't know, but we figured it out. I didn't have to feel intimidated by all the titles and all that. I mean, everyone there was so accomplished that it came across a little bit scary. So I guess the message here is that happens everywhere. It's not only about like people that come with you to this class or to another class or wherever you go, or in your work experience. It's about finding the ones from that group that will hold your hand, or you can hold their hand when hard times come.
Yeah, I think that's so important that work is such a big part of our life, and having a team that you can count on that will back you up would instill confidence in anyone, male or female. So since we talked about this, I've been thinking about the concept of allies, and I think it's so important to identify them from the very start of your career and then moving on. Okay, so we do want to hear about your negotiating. So you negotiated your job offer. You had a lot of people interested in you, and I know that that is something that can be awkward, especially for women. So can you talk about how that went and what happened?
Yes, I guess you and I have probably heard a lot from women who thought they were not good enough for a great job offer that they received. So they were stressed because they weren't sure if they can pull it off. And I had heard about it. I guess I kind of was expecting myself to feel the same when I get job offers from like this big, nice company names. But in the end of the day, I guess I was confident enough in myself that I, in the end, picked the job offer that had, like, it was not the most paying, but it felt like it has the right mindset. It felt like the connections were there. And I'm very happy that I made that decision, because I guess we live in a specific time in the world where the shift is happening. You hear from both sides of this group. You hear from women who need the support to be pushed, and then there are instances when you sit in a group and they talk about, oh, have you heard from that girl who got the job just because she's a girl? And you have to just sit there and be like, how can you even like say this? We are not yet there. Anyhow, so I guess I'm going to take this back to getting the negotiation part, that I negotiated with the companies that I didn't want their job offer because I wasn't sure. I guess I kind of had the question with myself of how much should they offer you in monetary value so that they would pick them over the jobs that you actually like. And it's worked out, at least on the paper. They were happy to offer me more money to join the companies that didn't have the right chemistry. I don't know if I can call it that, but the connection wasn't there, or I didn't see that there. But I ended up picking the offer that I accepted now, and I'm with now, and I couldn't be happier. My work is awesome. The people that I work with are really, truly awesome, super smart, super supportive. Not only people that are nice to work with, but people who are good to take out for a drink, which is not easy to find. So I guess now I'll take it back to how the confidence helped me pick the one that was right for me and not the one that was right on the paper, or other people would have picked if they were in my shoes. I don't know if this makes any sense. I hope it does.
No, it's great. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, and then, one thing that you mentioned too that I thought was helpful was that you kind of set the stage up front with this particular employer, right? Where you said hey, this is the range that I want to be in. And so they kind of knew, and then you're able to go back and say, hey, I'd like to be at the higher end of this range, but it makes it less awkward at the tail end of it. But I also think that getting the negotiations out with companies where you're not going to take that offer also helps. It's like a muscle memory. So I think that's great advice. Okay. And then let me ask you, what is the biggest piece of advice that you would give to a woman that's considering, entering a career in data science or data analytics or data engineering to help set them up for success?
I mean, I'm going to go back to the two things that we talked about mostly in this presentation, which would be confidence and allies. I started attending, so as an immigrant girl, I found a specific groups that were from my country, or for people from my country, focused there and helped you find the like-minded people that could help you. My advice is look for the same groups. If you are a minority, or even just a woman who's looking for the support, look into your city, look in the state that you're at, and see if you can find support groups. And now that everything is online, you don't even have to stick to that. Make sure you are looking everywhere for the right group that will give you the right tools to go into this go into this new field. And they will be your allies when you're looking for the job. You are not the only one who is thinking about changing careers. You're not the only one who is forced to think about all these things at the same time. How do I balance my rent when I'm attending school and thinking about my immigration status and like interviewing for this new job and thinking about my pet who needs to go to we all are in this together. So don't think you're the only one that is going through this. And also know that when you find the right people, they have gone through many of the things that you're worrying about, and they can help you. So that has been the key, is going to be the key. Find the right support group for yourself and think about how you can provide the same for other people in your group. Who can you connect them to? In the group that we were in, the cohort that we were in, again, as an Iranian girl, I could see that there was a couple of people from my country who were struggling with a couple of things in class. Guess what? We would have sessions after class in our native language just because it was easier to communicate. If I could help them, I would provide that help. And this is how I think, as like, you take from one hand, you give from the other, and you make sure the chain works. You'll be lifted up from somewhere. And confidence, I think you touched so many interesting and good points in there that are awesome. Make sure that you carry yourself with the confidence that you deserve, with whatever you have to show, so that you enter the room worthy of who you are. You don't have to be scared of your accent. You don't have to be scared if you don't have the degree that everyone else has. Someone will like you for the resume that you have, for what you have done, and it will all fall in place. Again, we have all been there, done that. Everyone, all the 70 something people who are in this are together in the group. I mean, the 70 people who are listening to this, and then many more who have gone through this boot camp or done this on their own. The group is large. Don't be scared. You'll find the right people.
Okay, wow. I am super inspired by that. I think that you win the award for maybe the nicest person in our program. So there you go.
Definitely not. I need it for myself.
Well, I am impressed, and I really appreciate that, and I'm sure everyone else does. So, the last thing that we'll talk about here is that it is important to invest in yourself. And so, if you don't feel like you have the skills or the confidence, a great way to bolster that is to, make sure that you're doing what you need to do so that you can walk in and feel like you have the skill set and the certification or whatever it may be to get you to where you need to go. And so getting a certification, saying I am a certified data scientist, is a great way to start. Looking at different training programs, looking at the employment stats of those programs so that, if you decide, okay, I'm going to go to this program and it's going to give me a boost into my career, lots of things to look at, but just making that investment in yourself, because you are worthy, as Shiva said, and you're worthy of all the great opportunities that are available out there to you if you have the confidence to go for it. So we're going to open it up here to questions here in just a moment, but I did want to share that we have a Women in Data Part 2 coming up. So we will be partnering with with Pragmatic Institute on November 3rd for another Women in Data talk with Eugenie Packer. She's actually on our data science advisory board, very accomplished woman, and we'll be talking about some of her experience as a woman in data. And then, like I mentioned, our application for the winter session is now open. We actually just closed out our early admissions, but we do have regular admissions open until November 4th. One thing I will say is that if you're here today and you decide to apply, if you apply within the next 48 hours, and you mention that you're here with you were here today in our talk, in the text box at the end of the application, you will get priority application review. And if you did not, if you've already applied, no worries, just email us and we'll make sure that we have that noted in your application. So, okay, so with that, we are going to go ahead and move into the Q&A portion. So let's see here. Okay, so we have an attendee, Shiva, that has asked, I wonder about hidden barriers such as age. Can you comment on that?
Definitely. I have not personally had any issue there. I don't think so. But I know people who are older than the normal age that we would expect people. I'm guessing I'm saying this all wrong. I don't mean there is a normal age. There is not a normal age, but the hidden barriers are there. The hidden barriers are everywhere. We are having this this webinar on women in data because there is that barrier. There are many more that we have to talk about what we don't because they're difficult to point out. The age barrier, I'm guessing, is there, but it may be different when you go to different companies. Something that I was thinking about as you were talking about interviewing with different places, Christine, was how if you're worried about something or if you're thinking about something that may or may not be a problem or you want to know about it, a good practice would be to find people who work on that in that company, people who are like you, have the same um, characteristics that you are worried about, and ask them, well, as a woman, how do you feel this company is treating you? As someone from this other country, how do you think this company is treating you? As someone with an older age, how do you think this company is treating you? Most people would be very happy to reply and answer and tell you what they think, how they feel about this. Sometimes you don't find that thing there. You don't find someone who has changed careers and they were, I don't know, in an age that you think would be a difficult age to approach that. It's okay to talk to people who are newer in that company or older or have been there for a longer time, someone who think you can relate to and ask the difficult questions from, someone who is friend of a friend and knows that industry well, can point you out to, okay, I think I know this company, they're very inclusive, maybe try interviewing there. One other thing that I wanted to say about the age barrier is that even when you are younger, doesn't matter, you come from a background, when you're changing careers, you are coming from a background, you have something that others may not. Don't think about that as baggage. Think about it as something that will give you edge in something new. Think about all the ways that you can reframe what you have done in your career before this, or even if you haven't been in that mindset, maybe you have just decided to start work at an older age. That's okay. Find the allies and they will answer your questions about all that. I don't know if this is answer enough. I don't know who asked that question. Let me know if that answers what you were thinking about, or if I can provide any more on that topic.
Awesome. All right. So we have another question here. What would be a good way to look for jobs systematically?
That's the big question, I guess. What I did was I was very particular on what I wanted to end up doing. I really wanted to, again, as I said, I didn't want my previous experiences to just, I didn't want to leave that all behind. So I was very picky on what industry I'm looking at and where I'm looking at. So that made it a little bit easier because the keywords were very particular. I had a list, I had an Excel sheet of places that I was applying, what happened, what date did I send what, when did I hear back. Many people in the cohort, I think, had something similar going on because we could talk about reply rates and how many you're hearing back from and things like that. And that's all I can think of that lists the jobs that you're seeing on LinkedIn, on Monster, on wherever your go-to job search is, and keep track of places that you're applying and places that you're not hearing back from. The places that you don't hear back, like they don't even say no to receiving your resume. Those are the ones that you don't want to really go to, I guess, or I don't want to. So keeping track of them has been good because it has given me an idea of like, yes, they have this other job that's very interesting, but I'm not going to apply for it because they never even cared enough to say no to the previous one or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There's actually a lot of, etiquette with that goes both ways with interviewing. And if the company isn't being respectful of your time and at least getting back to you, like you said, or if the interview process seems weirdly long and drawn out, those are red flags that you can look for just about the culture even. So that's great advice.
I'll add
go ahead.
one quick thing to
Yeah.
that. There are platforms that people talk about, and some of them are very interesting places to be at. There is Blind, and there are Reddit subreddits that you can find very interesting information, specifically because they are anonymous platforms. So people go there and talk about many things that go on in different tech companies that will be very useful when you are thinking about applying for those. So another point in that systematic application is when you see very interesting job openings, take the 5 seconds to look them up in one of those platforms and see what you see about them. Sometimes red flags are easier to find. Sometimes they're not, but maybe this helps.
Yes, I think that's great advice. Okay, here we have another question for you, Shiva. What are the industry standard certificates in data science? Are there any?
I don't know of any. I know there are people who take exams to show that they are AWS certificated, like they are experts in AWS. But for other ones, I can't think of any standard certifications. I don't know. No.
Okay, perfect. So just keep all your skills, all of the skills sharp, and then you'll be fine. All right.
Actually, I think someone posted a list. I think Raven posted a list that we could maybe share with the group about. There are a lot of certificates. One thing that I wanted to say about that is if you are not 100% sure that that certificate is going to help you in your next endeavor, I am not sure if that would be worthwhile of your time. There are so many free and not certificate things. I mean, just going through Kaggle and doing a project there might provide you with more experience, more things to learn compared to a certificate. I know it's not going to be the same on the resume, but the skill set is going to be more important. So talk to someone who has done those certificates before to make sure if they are the right fit for you.
That's great advice. Okay, so you have another question here from Anna that I will answer. How does TDI deal with gaps in resume, particularly for women who might be out of the workforce for some time due to family reasons? So we see this all the time. I think that the main thing is that you don't need to apologize for that. The main thing is focusing on what your skill sets are, what your skill set is, what you've been working on recently, and what you can bring to the table is key. And that there's no need to be apologetic or feel that you have to over-explain any gaps in your resume. Just keep it to the point and what you bring today.
Exactly. I mean, I totally understand that, and I want to say, be proud. You are the ones who are creating the next generation. You don't have to be apologetic about that to anyone. So be proud. You spent a few years at home for very good reasons. That's all okay. Also, make sure that you remember that it's not like the other people who were working those years that you were staying at home have been doing those like very exciting jobs, those very exciting things. They have sharpened all their skills while you were staying behind. Many of us haven't been doing that. Just make sure your resume stands up to the point when you're applying for that new job, and your resume and your skills are updated for the things that are in now. There are things that get retired. There are technologies that get retired from year to year. Just make sure that you're on top of that. You know where your focus should be, and you can talk about that gap, in your words, in your own, you know, um, words about how you have used that time and that. I don't think many companies care about that gap really. Don't penalize yourself for something that others are not going to penalize you for.
Yep, 100% agree. Okay, so I have another question for you, Shiva. I found it very hard to find an entry-level data science position. Many roles need industry experience. Any suggestions for new grads trying to find their first job?
My suggestion would be to, well, think about it like this. Right now, there are so many people that call themselves data scientists that it's difficult to sift through them. That is something that we all have to admit when we think about the other side. So without the experience, without some industry expertise in any industry, it would be difficult to be a good data scientist in that field. Something that may help is to see if you can find jobs as senior data analysts, or if you can find jobs that are in the crossroad of what your expertise, like what you are bringing in, and the data science position. So if your background is in chemistry, see if you can find data scientist positions in the chemistry industry. Like, try to find that overlap so that you can use your other experience as tools that will apply in the new job. Other than that, I think there is had asked that question mentioned, there are very few data scientist positions that want 0 years of experience. I suggest looking at internships with bigger companies and looking at senior data analyst roles. They are both going to take you to where you want to be. It'll take a couple of years, yes, but hopefully it will be worth it.
Yeah, and I think too, we get people kind of hung up sometimes in our program about taking their first job offer that they get. Oh, I don't know if I want to work here. But the thing is that you don't have to stay at the job for your whole life. And so I think some people, view this as a lifelong commitment, and it isn't. And sometimes you just need to get one job under your belt, and then you have the experience to move on to Amazon or anywhere else that you want to work. So we've seen that very often. Sometimes get your foot in the door, and then you can decide what your dream job is. So, okay, and then we have another question that's similar. I don't have experience in data science, but I completed an online course on LinkedIn, and I have a bachelor's in engineering. Is it possible to get a job?
I'm not going to call it impossible, but what I'm going to say is there's a reason that we are sitting in this webinar with the boot camp.
Yep.
Well, it's very difficult. I'm not going to lie to you. Just that course on LinkedIn is not going to get you far enough. Again, unless you find the right fit for your engineering degree and go from there. But if you are interested in finding a more like data sciencey job, you may have to go for a more formal experience level, meaning think about the boot camp, think about something that you can put on your resume and use it as a tool to show that you know how to handle a project from 0 to 100, which is different from taking just an online course and doing their homeworks. So you want that on your resume. Make sure you can show that when you're looking for a job.
Perfect. Okay, then we have another question here. How did you approach the challenge, the coding challenge, to get in to the TDI program, especially given that your background was in architecture before?
So I had done a little bit of data projects before on my own. I had taken the online courses before. I had done some projects, both for work and for myself, and that's when I applied for TDI. So right off the bat, that might sound a little bit difficult if your background is very different and not techie at all, which architecture is definitely in that group. It's like, yeah. But I was fortunately coming with a little bit more experience. If you're in that same situation, make sure that you put some time apart now to take some online courses, make yourself familiar with coding languages, with programming thinking, with that analytical thinking, which is different from the design world. And yeah, you have a little bit more work to do, but it doesn't mean that you have anything to be scared of. You may be ahead of other people when it comes to the analytical thinking, just because you can't think out of the box because of your background. So don't be scared.
Yes, okay. And so with that, Nicole is asking, can you describe which specific online classes you took? It sounds like it helped prepare you.
Sure. I took one in Udacity, which was about the data science. I have to look up the name to be exact. But it was one of their nano-degree programs, and then some free courses from UT Austin, which is my alma mater. So and wherever I could find any resource, I didn't say no to them. Doing projects, doing Kaggle, doing the HackerRank stuff also helped. So I do suggest looking into those as well.
Awesome. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of our time here. So Shiva, thank you so much for coming and speaking with everyone today. You had so many wonderful insights and left us with so much to think about and so many helpful tips. So really appreciate your time. And I'd like to thank everybody that has attended here today, and hopefully we will see you applying for our program for the winter.
Sure. As I said before, if I can be your ally, do message me. Don't be scared. My name is quite unique. You'll find me on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's so nice. There you go. You already have an ally now.
Yeah, happy to help anyone if I can.
All right. Thank you so much, Shiva. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.